After a long night of driving, I'm back, and I got Biz with us. We talk about the Deacon Hill era as it begins, and Cooper DeJean. Should we play him on offense today? Locked on Hawkeyes.
You are Locked on Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Trent Condon, that's Biz, and this is the Locked on Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked on Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube. While you're there, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. Biz, back at it after a week, and, well, before we get into it, I was sadly not able to make my way to Iowa City over the weekend. A night game. Yeah, it's not Michigan or Ohio State or Penn State there. It was Michigan State and a down Michigan State team. But what was the environment like on Saturday night in Kinnick?
I would say for most of the game, it was a frustrated environment. I think people were more annoyed than anything. I mean, obviously any night game, it's always a good environment, but it wasn't. I mean, for 3.5 quarters, I think it was kind of a impending sense of doom almost, and everybody was obviously mad at Brian and frustrated with just, obviously the McNamara injury. But then obviously the last 4 minutes, it was about as loud as it gets. I mean, that was, I don't think you can overemphasize. I mean, the crowd probably helped them. I mean, won that game for them.
Yeah.
I mean, it really did, because Michigan State really got flustered in that fourth quarter, and it reminded me of the Penn State game a couple of years ago, when the moment we got the lead, I mean, there was no doubt the game was over. They weren't going to come back and score again. And they had three straight false starts again. And it was just, but for most of the day, I would say environment was shaky. The last 5 to 10 minutes of the game, it was rocking. So, and thanks to Cooper DeJean.
Absolutely. And an incredible play there. So it wasn't pretty. But it doesn't matter what team it is. I mean, anybody bringing in a backup quarterback, you're going to anticipate that things are going to be a little bit shaky. You lose your starter, and Deacon Hill early on looked pretty solid. He was 7-12 at one point. Now he finishes, I think it was 4 of his last 15 passes. So things went down. Michigan State, I thought, did a really good job early on. We saw that bootleg action was working really well, getting him out of the pocket, moving, and really bringing the full complement of the offense back. And I've talked about that a lot this week, Biz. But after that, their defensive end or the outside backer, they weren't biting inside and made it difficult for Deacon Hill. I mean, there was pressure in his face basically every time they tried to boot after probably about the middle of the third quarter.
Yeah, as you said, what wasn't pretty is probably going to have to be our team motto down the stretch here. I mean, it's going to be, every game is going to be an absolute struggle the rest of the way. I mean, I know the drive for 325 is a popular thing to talk about, and everybody loves to make fun of it. But at this point, with everything that's happened, shit, if we get to 325 points, they should throw a parade in Brian's honor at the end of the year. I mean, we're not getting to 325. I mean, they're going to have to just, our offense is basically stuck together with duct tape and glue at this point. And Deacon Hill, he's a fun story, and I hope he can keep it up. But I'm not optimistic he's gonna. No. I mean, you look at his background. It's have you looked into him at all? It's a pretty crazy background. He's a very interesting guy. He's probably the most unique Iowa quarterback we've ever had. I mean, you go back through. I mean, he's of Polynesian descent. He's Mormon. Things that generally don't usually get Iowa quarterbacks that are either of those. He grew up playing water polo, of all things. His older sister is an Olympic champion water polo 2016. That tells you how much they love water polo in his family. And he basically hasn't played at all in 3 years. I mean, his last year of high school was wiped out due to COVID because California wasn't playing football. And then he went to Wisconsin and didn't play, and now he's here. And, I mean, he's thrown – I mean, I give him credit. I thought he came in and played – given the circumstance, I thought he did fine last week. And, it'll be a hell of a story if he ends out running with it and doing well the next 2 months. But, I'm not overly optimistic. At this point, if if he does, awesome. But I'll go into each week just hoping for the best because I mean we are. Offense was going to be shaky to begin with, but given all the injuries, it'll be a miracle if we can get to 25 points in any games now.
You know, Biz, I mentioned a bit ago that at least we get to see the full complement of the offense. I keep bringing up this example. It was the Iowa State game. And Cade McNamara early on dealing with that quad injury. I mean, just how limited he was just playing under center. There was an outside zone play. They didn't run many of them, but there was one against Iowa State where you could see him just laboring, getting out from under center. And then it was an outside zone. You have to basically run out there. And he barely handed the ball off. He almost had to like pitch it to get it out there on an outside zone play. Now, with Deacon Hill, they weren't running bootlegs. Or if they were so rare. Now that full complement's back. Look, the Brian Ferentz offensive system and what they're doing schematically is broken. I think everybody can see that, and there needs to be a major change, but it is what it is right now. They're not going to change their philosophy mid-season. It's just not going to happen with the full complement, the ability to waggle and to bootleg and to kind of do all the things that we're used to with Iowa football with Deacon Hill back there. I see it as a positive because the Cade McNamara that we saw through the first 4 games, that was not the Cade McNamara we thought we were getting last December.
Well, I mean, Hill can't be any worse than what that McNamara was those last couple games. I mean, I thought he played fine the first 2 games, but against Western Michigan and against Penn State, he was bad. I mean, and part of that probably I think due to health, but also he just wasn't. He was kind of gun shy, and you know, I hope Cade McNamara gets healthy. I hope he comes back next year, and I hope he has. You know, he comes back and plays well, but he was not a good quarterback that those 2 games. So. You know, it's again, I'm just going to roll with it these next 7 weeks. Every game is going to be an absolute grind. I mean, I mean, there's not a single game in our schedule, and this is Iowa football to a T. But there's not a single game in our schedule we can't win, and there's certainly not a single game on the schedule down the stretch we can't lose either. And that's fully true now. I mean, because we don't know. Deacon Hill, like I said, might be a fabulous story, and if he is, you know, the legend of Deacon Hill begins this week, I guess. But you know, given his lack of experience and the fact that he was slated to be playing for Fordham, right. you can't really, you know, your expectations for him have to start low. But having said that, Trent, we need a nickname for him. You know, big guy like that. What's
well, I like Bacon Hill. I think it works. Instead of Deacon, you go with Bacon.
Yeah. So I was thinking that they probably can't play this because it's probably frowned on to play R. Kelly songs at Kinnick, but Freaking Deacon is great. You know, you just get remixed to Ignition playing on there every time he does something well. But
I'm in. I'm in. Yeah, I don't know if that's if our Kelly catalog got kicked out of Kinnick and Carter.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's probably and he probably doesn't. You know, he seems like a really nice kid, so maybe he doesn't want to be associated with R. Kelly.
Probably.
Either, so.
Yeah, there's a few negative connotations that come along with
with
that
one. Freaking Deacon can be good because when he makes a mistake, you can think, God, freaking you know, it can be in a negative way or in a positive way also. It can go both ways. So.
I like it. Well, we'll go with it. We'll roll with it here, at least here on Locked On Hawkeyes. Freaking Deacon. And, you know, Caleb Johnson looks like he might be able to play. Jazzion Patterson still another week away from the passing game. And what we've talked about a lot there. I don't know. The run game, they've tried different things. We've seen more jet motion. We have seen them use counters, more ISO, a lot of, instead of just inside, outside zone, doing different things. And it just doesn't work. Is it our offensive line? They just stink. They're just not good players. I mean, is it as simple as that?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think it really is. I mean, I think you and I have been probably the most, I mean, that's one thing you and I have taken consistent on over the years is how frustrated both of us are with the offensive line the last 5 years. I mean, they just haven't been consistently good for a long time. Mm-hmm. Do they have their moments? You know, obviously we look good against Western Michigan, but that's Western Michigan. Right. I mean, they're just consistently a below average offensive line. But I'll give them credit. Their pass protection has been very good this year. Yeah. And I think they need to lean into that, and they need to become a pass first team. They're just not going to grind it out running the ball on people. It's going to have to be kind of working backwards. And so, but yes, I mean, the simple answer to your question, Trent, is we're just not a good run blocking team, and we haven't been for a long time. And that's depressing. As not, you know, as a team that likes to fashion themselves as the bullies of the Big Ten, we have not been that for a long, long time, at least on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah. I mean, I always bring up 2019. You got 3 high-level NFL players, 2 NFL tackles, and Alaric Jackson and Tristan Wirfs. You have Tyler Linderbaum, already, when he's healthy, one of the best centers in the NFL, and they still couldn't run the football that year consistently because the guard play was so bad. And scheme is a part of it, but I think it's Jimmy's and Joe's, and that's a big part of this one too. And it becomes frustrating. Well, we do still have a defense, including a guy we mentioned a little bit earlier, Cooper DeJean. Is it time to move Cooper and play some snaps on offense? We'll get into that as we continue here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and leveled up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Trent and Biz back with you once again here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. As always, thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Biz, Cooper DeJean. He's a shiny object. We know what a playmaker he is with the ball in his hands. We see the punt return. We've seen him in the interception returns. We know that he can make plays. His high school film is incredible. So I'm playing quarterback for Odebelt Arthur, Battle Creek guy to grow back in the day. Iowa, getting the ball in his hands. Now, we've gone down this path before. I remember there was a year where they were really struggling at receiver. Desmond King was brought up. He said, yeah, I think I'm going to be out there. And, of course, it didn't happen. I think Cooper DeJean is a different kind of athlete, even than a Desmond King. So just start right there. I mean, the likelihood, and that's where I kind of start the conversation. It's Kirk Ferentz. The likelihood that we see this feels really, really slim.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 different questions here. Should he play offense and will he play offense? The answer to the first one is yes, and the answer to the second one is no. I mean, he should. I mean, he should be playing some snaps on offense. I don't think he should be doing what Travis Hunter was doing and playing 125 snaps a game. But
right.
Could he be in on some unique packages, run a jet sweep, run something with him, or even just use him as a decoy for 10, 15 plays a game? Absolutely. Will he? No, he won't. I mean, we as Iowa fans, we should know better than even talk about this at this point. I mean, I know it gets brought up and it's asked at the press conference and everything, and so you kind of have to talk about it, but it's just a waste of energy at this point. I hope I'm wrong. Last week I was I wouldn't say critical, but I commented that through 4 games Cooper hadn't done much, and clearly.
You called him out in the punt return against Penn State.
Clearly, he listened, Trent, because he seems to be the vindictive type kid. He's very So hopefully maybe reverse jinx 2 weeks in a row. Well, last week I said he hadn't done much, and then he obviously carries us to victory. And this week I'm saying there's no chance in hell he's playing offense, and so there you go. Let's hope the reverse jinx is in.
Yes, I like that, and I think you're exactly right. And just imagine the buzz, though, if he trots out there, second possession of the game, trots out there and just lines up. I mean, just something to get the juice going, and how Purdue would probably react. I mean, they know who number 3 is. He's an All-American. They know who he is, and all of a sudden, all right, what are we going to do? What are we going to change? And you said 10, 15 plays. I don't even know if it needs to be that. I mean, 5 plays, just something. And throw him a wide receiver screen, get him involved, just get the ball in his hands, a jet sweep, whatever it is, because he's dynamic. And I would love to see it. I think all Hawkeye fans will love to see it. Will we see it? You're exactly right. We won't. So what will we see? What's a realistic view of this football team going forward? Earlier in the week, I talked about the floor has lowered a lot more. And we came into the season believing the floor was 7-5, maybe even 8-4 with this football team because of the schedule and what they had and what they were going to be, good defensively, elite special teams. And that still looked to be the case before the injury. Now, I lower that floor a lot more. Even with 4 wins already in the bag, we just don't know with Deacon Hill and with the offensive struggles and all these games being coin flips. There are times that those coin flips just land tails and you're on the losing end more times than not. Very well could happen this year. How do you see it, Biz?
Yeah, I mean, the key thing is still the schedule. God, you look at that. I mean, we still should win every game at Kinnick. I mean, the home schedule is very, very easy still. And the game at Wrigley's going to be basically a home game. That place is going to be 80% Iowa fans. So you scratch out those 5 victories, that's 9-3 at worst. I mean, we really only have 2 road games left. Wisconsin, which, I mean, I think you can put that in the loss column at this point. I mean, us beating Wisconsin with all the things we got going on right now, I think it's pretty low. And then Nebraska at the end of the year, you obviously, you never know. But I still think this team can scrape its way to 9. And if they do, that's a hell of a year. I mean, given the circumstances, 9-3 would be awful impressive. But, you know, like you said, the floor right now, hell, I mean, you never know. We might go lose by, 2 touchdowns this week. And then the discussion becomes, can they scrape it to a bowl game?
You're right.
I mean,
yeah.
Because I mean, but I don't know. I mean, again, we've talked about it in the past. I always, you can be critical of our coaching staff in many ways, but they find a way. Those coin flip games, we win more coin flips than we lose them, and we're going to have to down the stretch. So, I think 8-4, 9-3 is probably the goal at this point.
I think that's probably realistic, and it's frustrating because of the buildup this year. I bought in. I'm not normally an optimistic fan, and I thought this team really had a chance to be special. It hasn't happened. The offense has just not clicked the way that I thought they were going to. The offensive line has been a huge disappointment, and just the scheme. And I guess I should have come back to the scheme more than I did, certainly during the preview of the summer.
And I think the other thing of that is the defense just isn't nearly as good as it was last year.
Yeah.
I mean, and the fact of the matter is, if you look at that, you take an objective look at our defense. I mean, Kayvon Merriweather was a 4 or 5 year guy, and now you got Wampa back there, and he's struggled some this year. I still think he's going to be a really good football player, but he's a young guy. And the linebackers, Jay Higgins has played well, but he's not Jack Campbell. Yeah. And Nick Jackson has had his struggles, and he's not Seth Benson. And then, Noah Shannon, was supposed to come back, and he's not back. And the young guys in the middle have been good, but they're young as well. Yeah. I mean, there's just we lost those guys right there. I mean, Merriweather, Benson, Campbell, Shannon, that's literally the middle of your defense. And that had, combined 20 years experience between those 4. And now you got guys in those same situations that are all in their 2nd or 3rd year. And it shows. I mean, we're not giving up huge plays, but the last 2 weeks, the amount of times we've given up 3, 4, 5 yard rushes on repeat is pretty concerning. I mean, at some point the defense just has to wear down a little bit too. So, I mean, that to me is probably the offense is what it is. It's not good, but last year we could count on the defense literally holding people to, 7 points or less every week. This year, I mean, realistically, the defense is going to give up 17 to 21 every week. So we got to find a way to get to 20 or above. And, not sure anybody has confidence that's going to happen. But on the flip side, who knows? Maybe Deacon Hill is freaking Deacon Trent. He could be the next coming of Chuck Long. So
let's hope so. Yeah, and the defense. And when I brought this up, some people react like, "Oh, they've only given up X amount of points here, and look what they've done." And I get that, but it's just not at the elite level. It's still good. It's still a good defense.
Yeah, I'm not in any way trying to be critical of defense. It's not last year's defense. Last year's defense was a once in a generation defense, and this year's defense is good.
Good, solid. It's a good B, maybe even B plus, but we had an A+ last year, and that's a step down. It's not to say that this is a bad defense. It's not what we're saying, but it's not at that elite level, and because of that, a lot of those things that you're kind of left with. You mentioned those 3, 4, 5 yard plays, but there's also those 12, 15 yard plays. I mean, that was such a rarity last year, and a couple of times Michigan State would get the edge, and instead of them normally being that'd be a 5 yard play against last year's defense, it's a 15 yard play against this year's defense. And those little things and those kind of hidden yards that, all right, they got a positive play, but it's not a positive play for 5, it's 15. That's impactful for this Iowa defense. The defensive line, I think, has been a huge disappointment. And even with Noah Shannon out there, just have not generated the pass rush that I think we were expecting this year. Xavier Wampa, Last game against Michigan State, he was coming off the field when they went away from Cash and they went to the traditional 4-3. I thought he played well. I thought that was his best game in a Hawkeye uniform last week. I thought he was really good, but his snaps have gone back because he hasn't been quite as impactful out there. Quinn Schulte's been fine, but hasn't elevated, I don't think, this year. And it's just, you kind of go through all those guys. And I thought Aaron Graves was going to come in here and be a difference maker. He's not. He's fine right now. He's just fine. And that's where we are. But the good news is one other thing, special teams. We love Torrey Taylor. We love punters here on the podcast. But Drew Stevens, that field goal that he hit from 53, like a third of the way up the net. And he said on Tuesday, I didn't hit that one very well. I mean, that dude is an absolute stud at the kicker position.
Well, and kickoffs, he's a machine. I mean, I can't remember the last time. The only time they ever return kicks is if occasionally we intentionally leave it short just so we can, against Western Michigan a couple times we kind of pooch kicked and let them return it. So our return team gets gets to try it out. But yeah, he is, that's the one thing we've taken for granted for so long in Iowa football is, I can't remember the last time we had a bad kicker. I mean, it's been consistently really good kickers, and hopefully he's here for another 2.5 years. So,
yeah. Well, it is time once again to make our picks. We will talk a little bit about the Iowa game against the spread and our lock of the week, including Biz, who is 4-0 this season, and I'm right behind you. I got another winner last week with Oregon State. You were on Georgia Southern, so I'm 3-1. You're 4-0. I think it only took us 6 years. We finally figured out only pick one game. That's the best way we're going, at least at this point, right?
Yeah, just pick one and hope to get lucky. And so far we've been lucky. So I'm sure the luck will run out at some point, but we'll ride it while we can, Trent. So
we'll do that as we continue here. Our locks of the week coming up next, presented by FanDuel on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. All right, Biz, back one final time on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast, and let's get into it. It is our lock of the week, just one game. Also talk about the Iowa game against the number. I will get to that in a moment, but the T-Box remain yours because you haven't missed one all season long. 4-0 on the season of your locks. What do you got for us this week?
Well, Trent, people that have been crazy enough to listen to us for years know that we have a diehard listener named Arkansas Alley who would never forgive me if I didn't pick the Razorbacks at some point during the year. And so I'm a big fan of Sam Pittman. I think he gets the most out of his teams. They're struggling right now, and people are really down on Arkansas. They got to go to Ole Miss this week, and everybody's high on Ole Miss after their crazy win last week. But the one thing you can usually count on for Lane Kiffin is that whenever you think things are going well for them, they usually find a way to, Ole Miss usually finds a way to blow it whenever you're high on them. And so perfect week here. Arkansas is going to Ole Miss. Nobody expects Arkansas to do well. So give me Arkansas plus 11.5, Trent. I don't know if they'll beat Ole Miss, but they will keep it close and make it a 4-quarter game. So Woo Pig Suey plus 11.5.
Arkansas, like that one, and I think I'm going to be jumping aboard with you this week. I love the angle that you talked about there, kind of a letdown spot. I'll be jumping aboard, and we'll make that one a family play. For me this week, we're still waiting. So Kansas last week, I loved them. I had them locked in. It was one of my numbers against Texas right away that I locked in, plus 16.5. And then right before the game, we found out, Jalen Daniels isn't going to play. Well, that sucked because I was in a spot where I could at least buy out of it, and we took the L there. But Kansas hung around, even with Bean at the quarterback position. Now, it sounds like Daniels is going to be good to go. Central Florida, just a devastating loss last week. You wonder kind of what their bounce back factor is going to be after blowing that game against Baylor a week ago. I think the Jayhawks are the right side, and I don't think it matters if it's Daniel or Bean here. I just think they're a better football team at home. Give me Kansas laying the 1 against the Golden Knights.
Kansas, Central Florida. That's
I don't know how much I'll watch.
A classic Big 12 matchup, Trent.
Well, as we look at the Iowa game, this is one that I am really excited. So I get an opportunity every week to talk to a line maker out at Circa in Vegas and Mike Palm. And I want to know, we know that every quarterback, there is kind of a point spread that goes along with it. My power numbers, I made the difference for Iowa 3.5 points between Deacon Hill and the Cade McNamara that we've seen this year. I think it's a lot more impactful because every power number system that I saw coming into last week had Iowa about a 7-point favorite in this game against Purdue. It's down to 2? a couple of spots. I think I saw 1.5 that popped at one point. Iowa just a slight favorite. Remember, Kinnick Stadium is a 4.5 or a 5-point home field advantage too. Different than the NFL where it's usually 3 across the board. Not the case in college, and Kinnick's one of the best home field advantages out there. I'm really surprised by this one. I laid it with Iowa right away. Just I want to see though what the lines makers how big of a gap they have between Deacon Hill and Cade McNamara.
Yeah, I mean, this to me feels like a Vegas knows spread. I mean, it feels like they're begging you to bet Iowa with such a low number. I think your random better would look at it like, oh, 4-1 Iowa versus a 2-3 Purdue at Iowa. Of course, Iowa's going to win by 2.5. But this line scares me. I think it shows me that Vegas feels pretty confident that Purdue's going to win this game, but because they're trying to get some money on Iowa and they're struggling, so they keep having to lower it more and more. So I don't know. I anybody that bets this game with any confidence, I think, is nuts. Just because what we talked about at the beginning, we have no clue what Deacon Hill's like. I mean, Deacon Hill could come out, throw for 300 yards, and like I said, the legend of freaking Deacon begins.
Let's slow down to 300, maybe 200 yards.
Or he could come out and go 11 for 27 again, but this time with 3 picks. I mean, he doesn't. I mean, he doesn't appear to be the game manager that I think he's gonna take some shots, and they may work, they may not work. If they work, then we're like I said, we talked about the legend beginning. And if they don't work, then get ready, Joey Labus, I guess. But because he will be a game manager. So, but I don't know. I have no clue. I really don't. I mean, good luck guessing right now on the Hawks. But honestly, Trent, my whole thing is I'm just gonna go and enjoy it. Like I'm tired of bitching about Iowa. I'm tired of bitching about the drive for 325. And now that McNamara is hurt, the expectations are low. So I'm gonna go to Kinnick and enjoy it and hope for the best. Hope that there's a good story with Deacon Hill, but certainly not expecting it. Let's put it that way. So my answer to your question is, Trent, I got no idea on this one. Stay away from it. Is basically
Over under sitting at 38.5 right now at FanDuel, a little bit higher than we're usually used to with Iowa over unders. Well, that'll do it for this week here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. And Biz joining me. We'll be back tomorrow. LaShawn Daniels is going to stop by, former Hawkeye running back, and we'll break things down with his perspective coming up on the Friday preview show. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Biz, we'll talk to you again next week.
All right, go Hawks.